to reach somebody here for the Defender user group to ask questions directly as well. And with no further ado, we're going to take and go on and introduce Drew Perry. He is the Chief Innovation Officer here at Ontenu. Drew has a lot of experience around AI, and this is kind of his baby to take on. But I am going to go on and hand that over to Drew and let him take charge of the meeting.
Thank you very much. I didn't realize my image would be there. I could go like this and cross my arms, just like my photo right there. So yeah, good to meet you all. So we're going to be running through today a bit of an overview of Copilot and Copilot for security specifically. Let me just quickly share my screen and let's get started. So, scan the code and follow me if you dare. If you want to follow me on LinkedIn, go for gold. We may or may not be already connected. We're very keen to continue the discussion with all of you. Any other questions that come up around, anything security operations, AI, Copilot, Microsoft, Defender, just reach out any point in time. Happy to have a discussion. And yeah, ask anything about security. Because in this day and age, we live in a prompt world, I would say. We live in a world where we can ask questions of any degree, complex, simple, of our AI agents that live beside us or are starting to live beside us. The world has changed very, very quickly. Just a few years ago, we probably never would have predicted that, well, we would stop Googling almost. Well, I've stopped Googling. Some of us have, and we're kind of leveraging, in our personal lives, ChatGPT, in our professional lives, maybe Copilot, maybe other tools and technologies there. But it is a different world, and it's a different skill set as well. But yes, times are changing fast, especially around AI models being able to outperform human capabilities. The pace of which our AI models are overtaking us and the breadth and width of the skills that it's beating us at is impressive and maybe scary. I love this from a cybersecurity perspective, because I look at this and I see analyst and SOC roles being sort of force multiplied. Like, we've now got that capability to have our security questions answered, our investigations to be assisted with, and a huge amount of time savings when we're sort of summarizing activities and incidents around what's actually occurring. And all of this, in theory, is freeing humans up to do, well, not sure what, more creative tasks. In my world, it frees me up to threat hunt or research things or read new interesting pieces. But, in the creative world, we've got spending more time writing and drawing things. But even that skill is being overtaken from AI capabilities. But yeah, back to sort of cybersecurity stuff. If we ask the question, can a large language model agent autonomously hack a website? I would say the answer is yes. And this is some research to back that up that was recently released around a number of models that were testing the OWASP top 10 attack vectors against a vulnerable website. And you can see that the success rates against specifically cross-site request forgery and SQL injection was actually 100% with GPT-4. Like, it just did it. Interestingly, if you then task your agent with the next step of an objective like an attacker would do, I was trialing this the other day, and it comes up with some pretty malicious stuff. It moved to ransom the environment. It exfiltrated the data out, interestingly, via DNS tunneling. And these creative abilities have obviously been learnt from real attackers and real behaviors, but yeah, it's come a very, very long way. So we need the tools and the technologies to kind of defend against this. But don't forget, when you are working with AI models, often they forget their own capabilities. I use the advanced data analysis capabilities within ChatGPT quite often to generate Python scripts to help me analyze files. And a lot of the time, it says, I can't do that. I don't have that capability. And I always have to remind it. I have to say, yes, you can do this. You do have this capability. You did it for me the other day. And it goes, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, let me actually generate this script for you. Oh yeah, I forgot. So it's just a weird little nuance of interacting with our AI models in this day and age, where often it forgets its own capabilities and behavior, which is actually creepily human-like. But yeah, I don't forget what skills I've got, but I get rusty at my skills. So it's slightly different there. And I feel the future is all about agents. And when I put this presentation together just a couple of weeks ago, it was before the recent announcements from Microsoft of their AI PCs and their recall feature, and soon to be Copilot capabilities where you'll be able to task it with actual actions. So it won't just be a prompting answer giving capability. We'll actually be able to task it with an objective to achieve something, like reply to my emails or go have a meeting with someone and find out this piece of information. We're a little bit away from that now, but you know, we are getting there in the age of the co-pilots that we live in, and yeah, we pretty much already live in the future. And it's definitely a future that OpenAI are working strongly towards, especially if you've had a chance to play with the GPT-4 Omni model, which is very, very impressive, and almost too creepily sounding too much like a companion to help you through your day-to-day tasks. But yeah, we'll skip over that. So I already touched on the AI PC era of Microsoft, but I think this is going to be a game changer for us. With Microsoft releasing their new ARM-based Surface laptops with native AI capability, it's pushing these AI models out to the edge. You know, we're going to have the power of this in our hand, the power of this in our laptops and our devices to really start leveraging on-device Copilot capabilities. So obviously all this is done in the cloud today, but very, very soon this will be the power in our hand with Microsoft's continued investment and capability there, especially around interesting stuff like video generation. You know, it's not long until even our entertainment may be purely prompt-based, and we'll be able to generate any form of video at one single prompt. This video is a bit old now, but you know, this was generated from one single prompt from OpenAI's Sora model, which I think is just graphically quite stunning. So just think of the art of the possible from an attacker perspective soon, where we won't even be able to trust the content we're seeing and the integrity of the information we're receiving. So interesting times lie ahead. And that is where, let me just skip that, we need the power of our Copilot capabilities. So if you, I'll skip the slide, this shouldn't have been left in here. If you bring together all of the Microsoft security product portfolio and start leveraging Copilot for security, you can do very, very powerful things. So the two core functions or piece sources of information for Copilot for security is Microsoft Defender and Sentinel. That is the core starting point for helping you through an incident investigation, to provide additional context from threat intelligence sources, But then once you start bringing in your other sources of information like Purview and Intune, you can start working more towards actual preventative controls and using it to get recommendations as well. So I'll be doing a demo shortly where I'll be investigating an incident, and then we tie all the way back to actually Intune policies where MFA was used or not. And tying all these pieces together is an incredibly powerful arsenal tool to have in the arsenal of a cyber defender, especially when you piece that together with Microsoft's threat intelligence, but we will touch on that shortly. So I just want to go into a little bit of prompting. So say you have Copilot for security, but it doesn't mean that immediately you will get the most out of it. You need to build up your capabilities to develop good prompts. And this applies not just for Copilot, but in all aspects of interacting with your AI models, whether that's ChatGPT or Gemini or open source Llama, whatever that may be. A bad prompt is a bad prompt, and you won't quite get the piece of information you're really looking for. So an example of that is if you simply say, write something, which is very vague, does not provide any context, and it just doesn't give enough instruction to the AI to provide the useful piece of information you think you're looking for. So you need to be quite specific. So write a short story, no more than 200 words, about a space explorer, and output that as a Word document. Now that is very specific. It has the context, it has the audience for it, and you've defined an output. And the same is true when you're leveraging Copilot and Copilot for security. You should always specify the source of where you want that information. So look in Defender, look in Sentinel, in Purview, and be very specific with your sources, and you'll find that you'll get a lot further with the information that you're trying to get. Second example is summarization, or summarize this. We often use this use case, this summarization use case for incident investigation with an analyst or a threat hunter. Problem is it's just, again, way too vague. It doesn't specify the style or the length. And you could very much improve that to give it, again, more context and tell it who the audience is. So say you are summarizing an incident in Defender or Sentinel, you may need to report back in your root cause analysis report back to a CISO, back to your SOC manager around what's actually occurred. And if you specify the audience and the specifics of the incident, you'll find you'll get much more useful output. So back to Copilot for security. I've talked a lot around sort of the analyst role and the threat hunting role and capabilities of this, but I just want you to consider that it goes beyond the security roles and personas within your organization. Copilot for security is also very, very handy for IT administrators, your risk and compliance team, and anyone investigating and looking into hardening and securing your environment. Like I said at the start, there are some very interesting recommendations that it can make around implementing, say, correct conditional access policies, attack surface reduction rules in Defender, and it can also take into context the classification of data on endpoints. So recently with Microsoft Purview, there was a capability that's been released where Sentinel and Purview now work together on incidents to take in the classification for an alert priority. And again, Copilot has this visibility as well, which is incredibly powerful stuff. So say you have an incident or alert that occurred on one of your users' endpoints. You suspect that the machine has been compromised. You know that some data has been exfiltrated. And because you know the classification of that data to say be secret or highly, highly confidential, you can very quickly increase the priority of that alert to determine what happened there and get to the root cause to stop that spreading across your environment. So again, these new features are being rolled out all the time, and Copilot has a number of skills to take advantage of this. So all of this is feeding in via a user prompt, of which it then goes to pre-processing and grounding from its sources of truth. Those sources of truth could also be external log sources like Splunk or ServiceNow, a ticketing platform. And you can also build out a knowledge base within Copilot for Security with your own processes and procedures as well, which I find quite fascinating around the art of the possible there, because you can build out a very customized implementation of Copilot, and especially when you combine that with prompt books and that additional knowledge that you build out for those reoccurring activities. All of this is obviously built on the back of the Azure OpenAI service, so you are still protected by the security and governance that comes with Azure. So I've already touched on a number of these use cases. I find in my day-to-day activities, incident summarization is probably the most useful. The second most useful is reverse engineering of scripts. So traditionally, as an analyst or an IT administrator, if you've got a PowerShell script that you've found in your environment, or it's being used as part of an attack, you would need to reverse engineer it. So there may be some obfuscated code in there. Someone may have used some XOR encryption, who knows, some obfuscation, who knows. You need time to dig through that and investigate it. But these days, you can just ask Copilot instead of going off to external tooling like CyberChef or your custom scripts and KQL queries to do it. So again, it is a massive, massive time saving. The other area I'm seeing huge value and benefit is around guided response. So Copilot for Security becomes the sort of knowledge leveler in your environment. You may have a number of L1 SOC analysts and a smaller number of L4 more senior SOC analysts. But what we're finding is it's bringing that skill level up of those L1 analysts very quickly, because they're able to dive into investigations and not further and be guided through it step by step by a more knowledgeable Copilot in this example. So we're seeing less of a burden being put on higher level SOC analysts, because the L1s are becoming more and more capable, which is a great place to be, because then we're all learning stuff at a much faster pace. I've already sort of touched on the different personas and areas outside of security operations, but yeah, I just want to reiterate that this tool is also useful for compliance reasons and DLP analysts, because it's not just Defender and Sentinel. We also pull in Purview as a log source here as well. So Copilot comes in two experiences, one being the standalone experience. So this is where you can trigger different skills. You can run your prompt books, you can hook into your external plugins for that additional knowledge, and you can run your prompts to go through all those use cases that I've talked about there. Most common being a starting point for an investigation to dig into a particular incident. Often we want a lot more context and information about what's going on here, especially when there are industry-wide events like a major vulnerability. I find myself now going straight to Copilot instead of going and reading news sites and Twitter around, is this vulnerability exploited in the wild? What were what were the specific threat actors and who were using it, who was being targeted around this. I find that if I go to Copilot for that, I get those answers a lot faster. And the reason for that is there is a double win when you leverage Copilot for security. You also get all of the Microsoft Defender threat intelligence as well. And that is beyond the built-in threat intelligence in the Defender blades at this point in time. So it's almost like a cost savings because you're getting some impressive threat intel available through the standalone experience and the embedded one, which I will touch on shortly. So beyond the standalone experience, it also lives directly in the Microsoft portals with you, guiding you, prompting you, helping you through to give you additional context as required in the portal natively. So again, a very, very powerful way to interact with it. I find myself leveraging the standalone experience quite a bit more. But I'm doing more things like threat hunting and digging into specifics of an incident more than after the fact in the embedded portal. So I'm now just going to quickly run through a demo of this, and then we'll open up the floor to answer and talk about any questions. So feel free to stop me and come off mute, but let me just bring this up. Okay, so this is the standalone Copilot for security experience. And in this case, we're just going to do a quick run through to show off a couple of the capabilities here. The first is we prompt it to summarize this Defender incident. So immediately it gives us all the details around the PowerShell script that was executed a part of this incident, the user involved, the device, the operating system, and it's also defanged an external IP address here that was associated with this incident. So you can pivot again directly into the incident page in Defender, or you can continue to prompt to find out more information about this incident. So in this case, we can prompt it to tell us more about the entities associated with it. So which devices and users triggered this. And then as we can see, there's actually an external IP with an executable that was downloaded via PowerShell. So the next question as an analyst, you would normally go off into your threat intel sources, look up if this is a known IOC, who it might be tied to from a threat actor perspective. But again, we can just ask for that in a prompt, and we get that immediate threat intelligence. Excuse me 1 second. We get that immediate threat intelligence of the reputation of this IP address. We can see that it is indeed malicious. It is tied to a known threat actor, Silk Typhoon, and it is known to be a C2 for Cobalt Strike. So again, we can pivot in to find out more information about this threat actor, their tactics and techniques, but immediately we've got that answer around the maliciousness of this, which again is a massive, massive time saver. So from here, we want to dig in a bit more details around the identity associated with this incident and just do some checks around best practice configuration. So can we identify any legacy authentication methods? Can we see if this user has actually logged in from any non-compliant devices? And are there any misconfigurations around multi-factor authentication? So again, we get these answers very, very quickly instead of having to pivot off into different locations. And then finally, we can summarize this for a non-technical audience to give a summary around the actual incident and investigation for our reporting purposes. And these decisions and actions can then be taken to actually respond to this alert, whether you want to isolate a machine, block the user, or maybe even wipe the user's device if the compromise level was bad enough. I'll point out that Copilot for Security is not a tool at this point in time that takes action. It doesn't do any response capability, but that may change in the future. At this point in time, it is consolidating information to speed up your investigation process and help with those steps. So thank you all for that, and I now open up the floor to questions, comments, queries, and discussion.